Hi everyone, I'm Gertie and I am thrilled to introduce the Francie top. We're always getting requests for new patterns in the Barbie series. So this is our latest addition to the Barbie knit series. So you have Barbie, Skipper, and now Francie. And Francie was a doll who was introduced by Mattel in 1967. She was Barbie's mod British cousin. So as you may guess, our Francie top has some 60s vibes to it. It's very comfortable. It has a fabulous batwing style sleeve, a rolled funnel neck, and it has two different sleeve lengths. So it has the wrist length, and then you can also make it in a 3/4 sleeve. The top is a hip length top. You can tuck it in or wear it out, say with our Audrey cigarette pants. It would look very mod. And it's fully interchangeable in our Barbie series. So for instance, you could make a pencil skirt dress with the Skipper skirt, or you could even make a Francie bodysuit with the bodysuit pieces from the Skipper bodysuit. So you have a lot of options. Don't forget to check the notes and the instructions for everything you can do to make this pattern interchangeable. Okay, and don't forget that in our knit series, we have a slightly different convention for how we do the cup sizes. They're in two different groupings. So you're gonna have one group of A through double D cups, and then the second grouping is F through H cups. So be sure to cut the correct cup size. All right, so we're going to go right into talking about the pattern pieces and then fabric and supplies. Okay, so now we're ready to talk about the pattern pieces for the Francie top. This is a very simple pattern. There are only 6 main pattern pieces. And then I've also brought in 2 Skipper skirt pattern pieces so that we can talk about how you would convert this pattern into a dress. Okay, but first let's talk about the main pattern pieces. You have your top front. You can see this is the rolled neck portion here. It has a seam for the sleeve, about right here, and then there's a marked in waistline, and it's a hip length top. This piece is cut on the fold, as is the top back. Now you'll see on these pieces that we have the Barbie neckline marked in here. And that's in case instead of this chunky rolled neckline, you want to do the Barbie mock turtleneck, you would just follow these cutting lines and then use the mock turtleneck from the Barbie top, or the Barbie turtleneck expansion piece, which is a bit of a taller turtleneck option. So you have that option with this top. Okay, and then you have your sleeve pieces. You have a front sleeve, you're gonna cut 2, a back sleeve, also cut 2. And I just wanted to mention that the way that you can tell these apart, front to back, is that the front sleeve has single notches, the back sleeve has double notches where it meets the bodice. You also have the option of a 3/4 sleeve. So if you wanna do that, you would use this cutting line right here. Now to give the rolled neckline a little bit more body, we have included interfacing pieces. There's a front interfacing piece, which you would cut on the fold, and a back neck interfacing piece, also cut one on the fold, okay? Just interfacing, not fabric for those 2 pieces. Okay, so if you're just making the top, those 6 pieces are all you need. If you're interested in making something like the Skipper dress, which is what I'm wearing now, so this is a Francie Skipper mashup with a Skipper pencil skirt, what you would do is you would look for this waistline mark on the Francie top pieces, and you would grab your Skipper skirt front, and you would match those lines exactly, and then tape them together, okay? And then you're gonna cut this entire piece as one on the fold. And same thing with the skirt back. All right, now you also have the option to do this with the Skipper bodysuit if you wanna make a Francie bodysuit, okay? So those are all your pattern pieces. Next, we're gonna talk fabric and supplies. Okay, let's talk fabric and supplies. So like the other 2 patterns in the Barbie series, Francie is designed for stretch knit fabrics, and you're looking for fabrics with around 50% stretch. So that means you would take 4 inches of your fabric and stretch it, And you would want it to stretch to around 6 inches, and that would be 50%. Now, you do have a little bit of wiggle room here. If it's a little bit more or a little bit less, that's fine. Just keep in mind that that means you may have to either size up or size down, or either take in or out the side seams to get it to fit a little bit better. Fabrics with more stretch are going to fit looser on the body, okay? And fabrics with less stretch are going to feel tighter. So you may just need to adjust your fit if your fabric isn't exactly 50%. So keep that in mind. For Barbie and Skipper, we really stuck with cotton spandex jerseys. So generally 95% cotton, 5% spandex. So this is an example of that, this beautiful stripe. Also, this wild print, we made Susie a dress out of this, is also a cotton spandex blend. So these are great standard fabrics for anything in the Barbie series, but you can also venture out of that to things like this really cool textured chartreuse. This is a poly spandex blend knit with some texture to it. Has about 50% stretch and a little bit of stability, so it's perfect for this pattern. Pontes also can potentially work. Lighter weight, sort of less stable pontes could be a great fit for the Francie top, as long as it's around 50% stretch. Now, you may remember for the Midge Breton top, we used a lot of lightweight French terry, and here's one of the fabrics that we used for Midge. And this would be a great choice as well, a French terry, which is a nice lightweight knit with around 50% stretch, would be perfect for Francie. You are going to need some interfacing for your rolled neckline. Tricot or a nice lightweight sheer interfacing like this will be perfect for it. You don't want anything too heavy. So woven will probably be too heavy. You're looking for something like a tricot or a lightweight knit interfacing will be perfect. Okay, and then finally you're going to need thread for your Francie top. So you're going to be looking for all-purpose polyester thread, and you want to get a color that matches your fabric. And then don't forget your machine needles. You'll want either a stretch or a jersey needle in a needle size to match the weight of your fabric. Okay, so that's really it for fabric and supplies for Francie. This is a pretty simple project. So next we're going to get started sewing.
All right, the first thing we're going to do is attach the sleeves. And you can see Kristen's lovely hands here. She is sewing a sample for Susie in these Ponte stripes. So what she's done is she has pinned each sleeve front to the bodice front, matching those notches. And you just want to make sure that the curved side is facing down and the straight side is towards the top. So she's pinned one side and now she's going to pin the other. And remember, you can tell the front from the back while you're constructing it because you'll have single notches on the front and double notches for the back. And we cut the stripes going in the opposite direction on the sleeve, so it gives you this cool kind of Breton top effect. And now we're going to sew at 5/8 of an inch. So you're going to want to put your machine setting to a zigzag stitch, 2.5 wide by 2.5 long, roughly. And we're going to stitch from top to bottom on these sleeve seams. And don't forget to backstitch at each end. Okay, so now that those seams are sewn, we're going to press our seam allowances towards the sleeve. And then after pressing, if you like, you can finish these seam allowances as one. We're going to serge ours, so you can go to your serger and simultaneously trim the seam allowances as one and trim them down to 3/8 of an inch. And so here are those serge seam allowances, and you can just give it another press if you want to after serging. Okay, so now we're going to sew our shoulder seams. You can see that we have placed a pin on the bodice back just to differentiate it from the front, because once you serge down your seam allowances on the sleeve, you don't have your notches anymore to help guide you on which is the front and back, and they look really similar. So after sewing, you may want to put a little tag in your garment or a little bow in the back neckline so that you know which way to wear it. All right, so now we're going to pin the shoulder seam starting at the pivot point at the base of the neck. And then you're going to want to match your sleeve seam front to back as well and put a pin there. Now, when you're working with stripes on this top, we did match the stripes on the sleeve. That's easier to do. But then on the rest of the top, because it's cut from the neck all the way down to the waist, it's not possible to match from top to bottom the stripes. So you're just gonna have to choose where you want the stripes to match and prioritize one spot over the other. Now on the sleeve, because we did cut this on the cross grain to get a really interesting effect with the stripes, these stripes should match each other. So what we're doing is taking a pin at every stripe and making sure that it matches on both sides. So the first part of stripe matching is, of course, the cutting, but then when you're sewing, you have to make sure that they match as well. So you want to pin each one to make sure that it's matching front to back. So just take your time with this, and then that will pay off when you see your stripes matching after sewing it. And now we're going to sew from the hem up to the top of the neck. And there are a couple pivot points to be aware of, so we'll talk about that next. Okay, so this is the top of the neckline, and there's a slight outward pivot point midway down the neck. And then this more dramatic pivot point at the inner neckline where it meets the shoulder. And now Kristen's just sewing really slowly and taking out the pins as she goes to make sure that those stripes continue to match up. And now before pressing, you're going to want to do a little bit of notching and clipping here. So first you might want to check that your stripes are matching, that you're happy with how they look in case you need to go back and fix anything. Kristen's look beautiful, so we can move on here. And the first thing you're going to want to do is to notch at those pivot points. So at the outward pivot point, you can do a nice triangular shaped notch there. And then the inner shoulder pivot point where it meets the neck, you can just do a clip or just a small notch would be fine too. And that's going to help the neck lay flat when you roll it in. And now we're going to press these seam allowances. So first you can finish them. So Kristen just finished them on the serger, trimming to 3/8 of an inch. And now you can press them towards the back. So start with the sleeve. And it can be handy to have a little seam roll or something like that so you can just raise that seam slightly. It can help you to press it. Okay, so you're going to press towards the back. And then when you get up to the neckline, so there are two different sections on the neckline, the bottom and then the top, and it helps to press these in different directions. So the lower half of the neckline, you can press towards the front, and then the upper half of the neckline press towards the back. And that just helps stagger the seam allowances so that they're not all right on top of each other when the neckline is rolled in on itself. So there's one shoulder seam sewn, and now we're going to do the opposite side, just the same way that we did the first one. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is the side seams. So you're going to want to match up those side seams from the sleeve hem all the way down to the hip hem. And of course you want to match any stripes as you go. So this is what I was talking about earlier, that on that main top piece, you can only match the stripes in one area. And so we've chosen to match them starting from the hip up, and then they don't match around the neckline. So what Kristen is doing now is she is matching the stripes below the waist, and just using that same method to pin through each stripe and match front to back. And then same thing on the sleeve, we're going to want to match those stripes as well. And now we're going to sew all along that pinned seam. So from wrist to the hem at the hip. So again, as usual on this top, you're using that 2.5 by 2.5 zigzag and sewing at 5/8 of an inch. And just make sure that your seam allowances at the sleeve hem stay pressed towards the sleeve. Now it's really curvy under the arm, under that bat wing on this top. So you're going to want to do a few little clips. Just check those stripes, make sure that they're matching. And now just a few little clips at the curviest part of the underarm. And next you can serge these seams as one. You can kind of spread those clips as you serge just so that they stay open. And then you might want to press again just if it got at all wrinkly or ruffly from your serging. So just give it a flat press. And then you will press those seams towards the top back. And again, we have that little safety pin so that we know which is the back. And we're just using a ham here, just as an elevated surface to press those seam allowances as one. So there's one side seam sewn, and now you're going to repeat that process on the other side so that both side seams are sewn. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is sew the neckline. First thing to do here is to turn the neck to the wrong side of the garment. And where it folds at the top edge is going to be at that pivot point, that slight outer pivot point where you notched. So make sure that you fold it in right at that point. And one thing you want to do here is make sure that your seam allowances go in the same direction as you press them after sewing. And so you're going to fold it in. And you have some circles to match here. And one handy thing to do can be to use a large quilting ruler in between the layers, because we're going to be pinning one layer at a time, and you don't want to accidentally pin through all the layers of the top. So you can start at a shoulder seam, at that shoulder point, and you just want to spend some time here making sure that your seam allowances stay pressed to the correct direction, and then you can pin this in place. And same thing on the opposite shoulder seam. And now we're going to continue to pin all along that raw edge of the neckline edge that's turned in. And so using the ruler to help you, you're just going to pin this in place at the lower edge. And we're going to stitch it down next. And it's helpful if the head of the pins are facing the top edge of the neckline, then you can pull them out easily while you sew. And now we're going to stitch this raw free edge down. So take it to your machine and you can put the neckline over your free arm. And now you're stitching right next to the raw edge. So there's no seam allowance here, so stitch as close as you are comfortable, maybe about 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 inch away. Stitch all the way around. So you will have a visible line of stitching on the right side of the top, but after the neckline is folded down, you won't see that line of stitching. Okay, so that's what it looks like. So the neckline is secure on the inside. And now turn your top right side out. There's your beautiful finished neckline. And then to wear it, you're just going to fold it, double it in on itself. Give it a little press first. And you can fold it in. And so it will be concealing that stitched line underneath it. Next, we're going to sew the hem on the top. So you're going to turn the hem allowance to the wrong side, 5/8 of an inch. So you can use a ruler to measure as you go. And then press the hem to the wrong side. So you're going to continue like that all the way around, pressing the hem. And you can pin if you want as you go, or you may find that your hem stays pressed in place easily. So that's up to you, but you're going to do that all the way around the lower edge of the top. Okay, so now Kristen's placing pins just to hold it in place as she sews. And now we're going to stitch this on the machine using a 1/2 inch seam allowance so that your raw edge is caught on the inside. So It's a good idea to use a narrow zigzag here. So you can change your width to 1.5. A narrow zigzag is just like a little nicer looking for a hem. And also, if you liked a twin needle hem, that would be a great way to finish this as well, but that of course is totally optional. So there you go, that's your finished hem. It's a good idea to always give these hems a press after sewing, just in case they look a little ripply. And the next thing we're going to do is the sleeve hems. Okay, so now we're going to do the exact same thing for the sleeve hems. So you're going to want to turn those up 5/8 of an inch and pin and press in place. Make sure to measure. Now, Kristen is sewing the 3/4 length sleeve here. So if you're doing the wrist length version, you're going to have a narrower circumference to work with. But it's the same idea. Turn the hem allowance to the wrong side, 5/8 of an inch, just like you did on the lower edge. And she's pinning in place first, and then she'll give it a little press, and then you're going to stitch at 1/2 inch. Okay, so using that narrow zigzag stitch again, we're sewing at 1/2 inch around the circumference of the sleeve hem. Okay, so there's your finished sleeve hem. You would press that and then repeat that on the opposite sleeve. There's your finished turtleneck again, looking amazing. And this sleeve still needs to be hemmed. But here you can see what the finished top looks like. Those lovely hems, rolled neckline, and then the matching stripes at the sleeve, the underarm, and then below the waist. So that's it. Isn't this top so easy to sew? It comes together really quickly and looks amazing.
Okay, everyone, that is it, your Francie top. I hope you love how easy this one is to sew and how quickly it comes together. And I hope you love making it, and I can't wait to see all the different variations that you make. So don't forget to tag me. You can tag me at Goodbyyye18 on Instagram. And don't forget to use the hashtags Francie top and charm patterns. Thank you so much for being patrons, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.